This is what we need to do. This is going to bring that school to the next level.
That's Thinkering. This Thinkering process is going to be really transformational to all subjects that we're talking about.
The value of the Alliance is it's a thinking collective. Now we have a greater understanding amongst everyone. And that's not what's common in schools.
I always tell our students this can set you apart, make you stand out, something to remember you by. It's an opportunity to share. It's win-win all around.
I think the biggest part of what we do are the humans that we work with on the other side of that, right? Really see the human impact, the way that they're interacting and working with their community.
It really does have to flip. You should be able to think about that as your hero's journey, to be able to go, this is how I was able to overcome.
And they really have this drive to want change. And I feel like continuing that mission is really important.
Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Leila Mireskandari, founder and director of Kids Growing City. Leila has dedicated herself to teaching the next generation how to grow food and become part of the local food solution. Leila, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. I can't wait.
Leila, your journey into gardening education, we talked a little bit about it before, and I described it as a 2 a.m. moment, and you said it exactly was that. Go into that a little bit.
Yes, it actually might have been 2 or 3 a.m. In the morning. 15 years ago, I had my second daughter and I was on maternity leave. And for the first time, one of my actually friends who was on maternity leave at the same time suggested that I join Facebook. She said, you know what, we're going to have sleepless nights. You and I both know sleep's not going to be a thing for a while. So how about have something that entertains you? And I really love Facebook. How about you join it? So I did. And one of those sleepless nights in the middle of the night, probably 2 a.m. in the morning, I was, I fed my daughter and then I was, on the gliding chair, trying to, put her to sleep and with my left hand scrolling through my Facebook feed. And I came across this video of Bill Mollison. I had no idea who he was back then. Apparently, he's called the father of permaculture. I had no idea what permaculture was, such a thing even existed, but it grabbed my attention and I started playing the video and it was him, Bill Mollison, holding up a newspaper and then closing the newspaper and saying, sometimes I get really tired of bad news and I would like to turn that into good news. So he puts this newspaper, apparently filled with bad news, on a pile of straw, puts a potato in the middle, covers it with more straw and says, in 5 weeks' time, there will be a new set of potatoes growing here. And to me, that's good news. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was tired. I definitely was tired. Maybe it was the hormones. I don't know what it was. It just like my tears started coming down my face. I couldn't believe how hard it hit me. I was like, really? Like, because I come from a background of bad news and we all have heard tons of bad news in our lives. Like it's just, life sometimes gets really way too overwhelming with bad news. And I'm like, okay. And the type of bad news that you think you can never do anything about. That's the sad part about it. But there's a lot of problems in this world and you're like, okay, I'm only one person and there's nothing I can do. I have to take care of me and my family and that's all I can do. But this, idea of being able to turn bad news to good news in your own backyard and at the same time grow your own food and do it with ease, because I really didn't think that it was going to be so easy to grow your own food. Like really, like pile up a bunch of straw and put a potato there and it'll grow by itself. That can't be true, right? So I was like, if this is true, why did I not know about this? Why wasn't I taught this in school? Why weren't my parents taught this in school, or even my grandparents? Like generations and generations of this knowledge that's out there not being taught in schools. And I'm like, okay, so first of all, I have to find out if this is true. Because it's making a video that's fun and, engaging is one thing, but what is this permaculture thing? So I started researching about it and reading about it and I got books about it and I had a backyard and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start putting some of these practices into practice in my own backyard and see if this is really true. And it turned out to be really true. And I'm like, honestly, we need to teach this. We need to teach this. Now, my older daughter at that time, she was in elementary school. So I was like, okay, so not only generations before me and myself didn't learn this, my daughter isn't learning this either. So somebody has to change that. Long story short, I went back to work. I was a software developer, believe it or not, before this. So completely different field of work. I didn't even have house plants. Honestly, I had no patience or interest in growing anything in my life back then. But this idea of changing the world with food and, addressing all our food issues and food system problems and poverty and all of that was really intriguing to me. So so it's easy to grow our own food. How about we teach it to our kids? That's how it all got started, essentially.
Yeah, as a software developer, if then statements, Boolean logic, lots of math, and then now it's just let's go put our hands in some dirt, and it's just a totally opposite.
Right.
Yeah,
It's more of an art, much more of an art to work with nature than, logic. I mean, yes, there's some logic into it, but, you just have to let down your guard, be vulnerable, be willing to learn from nature, and try things and learn from nature and, change your plants all the time. That's how nature works. Very different.
How did you address the knowledge gap coming into something with this like new passion, but having no basis for really moving forward with it other than just the little bit of information you stumbled on?
Well, I did, get books and art, found articles online, and there were lots of books back then that I could dig into. A lot of the Bill Mollison videos were online, also on YouTube, and then I found other mentors in permaculture, watched their videos, and finally it was way into I was back to work full time, and I found this permaculture certificate course that was in person, that was very close to me, that I could commute to. So I convinced my boss to give me all of my vacations in a row. So I got 2 weeks of vacation. So he's like, and I told him, hey, this has nothing to do with work. I have to go to this workshop. It's a personal thing. Can you please, pull some strings and give me all of my vacations at the same time? And he's like, yeah, sure. He did that. So I went to this 14-day type of hands-on in-person workshop, and I got my certificate in permaculture. So that was part of it. But then in my own backyard, I put all of it into practice and all of that. But then I was not an educator, but I had this passion about teaching this to kids. So I approached my daughter's school, which was a very small private school back then. They had after-school programs. So they had programs like chess and, ballet and, computer programming, things like that. And I approached them and I said, can I offer a program, an after-school program of gardening and growing food? And they're like, whoa, that's fresh, that's new, why not? We can, offer that. And if parents loved it and enrolled in it, why not? Let's do it. So they gave me a little bit of a space in the yard and they said, let's try it. So that program got to full enrollment in 2 days. And then it went straight to wait list. And the wait list was also long. And I'm like, okay, so that tells us that I'm not the only parent thinking this is needed, right? So there are others out there thinking, oh, yes, wow, let's do this. Maybe they don't know about permaculture, but they would like their kids to learn how to grow food, and they would like them to, be hands-on in the soil and, connect to nature and all of that. So that's how it got started. But again, I was not an educator. I was so naive, a parent thinking this is going to be so easy. Because, it was so easy in my own backyard. So why wouldn't it be easy in a school environment? Exact opposite happened. It was so much tough, so much work. It took a lot out of me because, yes, it's not like chess. Like a chess teacher goes to the classroom once a week, teaches the kids how to do it, and the kids go home and they have a chess set and they, practice that and they come back. This is not the same thing. You're growing a garden out there. It needs love and care and attention. Pests come and create problems, and then it has to be watered every day. That's the least of it, right? If it doesn't rain and I'm not there, right? Yes, I'm a parent, but again, so I became not only this vendor, quote unquote, providing this program, and I had to write a program, a lesson plan, this series that I had never, ever even thought I would never do in my life, which was fun. That was the fun part of it. but I also had to be this volunteer parent who would need to go in every day and water the garden. Otherwise, nobody else would do it. And the problem with that was, well, first of all, a lot of work on my shoulders, but that was not the only problem. The main problem is that the teachers in that school didn't feel any ownership towards this garden because this was not their initiative, right? The number of kids that we could have in an after-school program was only 15. Right? Yes, it got to full enrollment in 2 days, but 15 was nowhere near the impact that I would, want to have. But I didn't know anything better, right? So this was the only way that I could think of. And I did that. And that garden did grow very well. It was an impressive garden. The administrators and the teachers who were passing by, they were really impressed by it. The parents really loved it. The kids loved the program. And, every semester, we actually repeated it. We couldn't do it in fall and winter, obviously, but every year it got repeated. It got even bigger than just that one school, because that one school did have other branches in other places in the city. So we offered it in there as well. And I was working full time, right? So I could only offer it as an after school program anyway. But then, I don't know if this story is getting too long. Let me know, and I'll try to cut it down. But long story short, we moved, and I moved my daughter from that private school to a public school near to us. And I, approached the principal of that public school. And I went through my pitch, and she looked at my program. They also had after-school programs that were not very actually successful. That school. Parents didn't like them as much as they used to do, in the other school. So she looked at the program and she's like, Leila, this is fantastic. Why are you doing this as an after-school program? This is an in-school program. I want you to come in. I'll give you 3 of my classrooms and 3 of my teachers. I want you to work with them side by side and run this program and build the garden during the day. And I'm like, okay, I'm working full time, but you know what? The idea was really intriguing. So I went back to my boss again. I'm like, okay, remember that thing that I did? So it turned out to become this thing. And well, by then he really knew me. He knew that I wasn't going to cut from my work and all that. So I said, can we arrange this so that I quote unquote work from home, 2 days a week. And then I'm going to go do this though, that I'm not actually working. I'm going to go do this thing, but I'll make sure that I make up for the hours after hours and I do my job, everything. And he just laughed and he's like, yeah, let's see what we can do about that. So he pulled some strings again. So I started this in-school program during the day for this one school. And my perspective completely changed. First of all, so much I learned about the curriculum, about the teachers, about the problems that the teachers have, the obstacles in their way of growing a school garden. So I experienced it as a parent volunteer, but then I was experiencing it as a teacher. How much work they have. They are the busiest people on the planet. And honestly, the decision making, the speed that is, life-changing during the day, the things that they have to decide and the things that they have to do to take good care of these little humans is just amazing. It is astonishing. Anyway, so I was like, okay, so that's a problem for teachers. This is a problem for teachers. So we cannot expect them to so-and-so. We can't expect them to put more than the time that they're already putting into, the education that they're running and stay longer to water the garden or come in during the weekend to water the garden or, do this as a lunch club or this and that. This is a lot of pressure on them. And that's why, and at the same time, I was looking at all the other schools that were trying to do a school garden. And I'm like, okay, so most of them, all of them are parent volunteer led. And I knew the problems with parent volunteer gardens. And I'm like, okay, so this could be it. This could be the solution to this gap. This could be the bridge that we can build so that the teachers grow the garden while they are connecting it to the math and the language and the science and social studies and health and arts and all of that they already have to teach, right? So, and that's why this one is working really well. Now, there was also this problem of summer maintenance that we had to address later. Luckily, this school had a daycare center that ran during summer, and these people were amazing people, and they were a Reggio inspired program. So growing food and watering the garden, all of that would really fit very well into their schedule and their philosophies and all that. So they embraced it. And that school garden, was really, really successful. This story is getting too long, man. Just tell me, stop.
No. Well, we talked the other day about whenever I pass by schools, I always see school gardens in some kind of dilapidated form, or I see a blank canvas where I think to myself, man, a garden would be perfect there. We all understand the need and value of it because you see it's been tried everywhere. Why isn't it working and sticking?
Exactly. Thank you so much for that question. That's the question of the century, honestly. And it is, the question that my programs currently are answering, because I saw that too. And not only it's sad to see, but it is also discouraging to everybody else who's thinking about it. Because when there's not enough examples of successful school gardens, all the examples that people see is something that gets started really enthusiastically, but then it gets abandoned after one season. People think it's not doable. People think, well, let's not even bother because look at, all the examples. So it's sad, but it's also discouraging and puts us in a, horrible, vicious loop of not ever getting this problem solved. So there are a few very main important problems with the way everybody tries to do it. And if you go and Google it, essentially, other than the stuff that you find from me and my platform, everything else is telling you this, or essentially giving you this advice, which is completely wrong and backwards. So please don't do that. Everybody tells you to, when you want to grow a school garden, you need to, put together a parent volunteer group, call it gardening, committee or whatever you want to call it. Like, let's bring these bunch of volunteer people and put them together so that we can do this huge, very difficult thing, which is not. So this is the perception that this is a huge project. It's going to be very difficult because look at all the other schools, it's hard. It's hard work. We need a lot of people. Coordinating and managing those people takes so much time out of the teacher's time and the parents' time, by the way, because sometimes teachers are not even involved, which is even worse. It's a bunch of parents getting together and thinking, oh, let's do this. And the teachers are like, oh, I don't have time for this. And they're like, no, don't worry. We're going to do it for you. And then you come and use the garden, right? And that's really, really, really wrong. First of all, they're not educators, these parents. I mean, yeah, maybe you are a teacher and you're a parent at the same time, but you're not a teacher at that school. You're a parent at that school, right? So you are not in the classroom, teaching anything to these kids. Maybe you run here and there, volunteer sessions with the kids so that they, plant the garden and then go. This does not get connected to any education, you can't connect it to science and language and math and all of that. So no education essentially happens in these gardens, which is one problem about it. But then because you're not using the collective power of the students, which is a lot, this becomes a lot of work for adults. And it becomes a lot of, coordination and management and meetings after meetings after meetings. And then, putting the volunteer in assignments, and then people's lives get busy, and somebody who's very enthusiastic at the beginning, all of a sudden his or her work changes. All of a sudden they move away. All of a sudden, like, they're not there anymore. And then they can't do it, or they're not very reliable people, because those people also exist. And there's a lot of people who say, oh yes, I'm going to do it. But then when it comes shoved to, it's just, they're nowhere to be found. So managing those types of things, it takes a lot of energy, effort, and nerves. And the reality is that you do not absolutely need to do that at all. Like, I'm going to tell you what to do instead of this. But, to answer your question of why this doesn't continue is because, next year parents are like, oh my God, no, I'm not going to do that again. Let's not do that again, or they try to do it, but then again, they're tired. They don't see the point after a while, And another problem is that we talked about permaculture and how it was the beginning of my path into this world. Permaculture is the exact opposite of conventional gardening, which everybody does. So these gardens are physically a lot of maintenance and work, and they don't have to be built and ran this way, right? So First of all, the wrong people are doing this. It has to be the teachers and the students, but it's usually the parents. And second of all, the way the garden is built and designed is a conventional vegetable garden, which requires a lot of watering, a lot of weeding, a lot of hard work, a lot of pest management and all of that, and which can completely be eliminated if you design and build the garden in, while you consider working with nature as one of your main things, right? So these are the two main issues that all these school gardens have that results in them becoming a huge project, a lot of work, and they get abandoned, and they were not educational in the first place because the kids usually don't learn much in there anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah, with kids learning from the garden, what does that look like? How does experience there transverse over into math or chemistry or just literacy?
Right. So this is a very important question too. And if we move past the problems that I just talked to you about, and we decide, then yes, it shouldn't be parents, it should be teachers. The first thing that teachers are thinking, obviously, is their curriculum. So I have this obligation to teach this math and language and science and these things to these kids. I don't have time, to grow a garden on top of this at the same time, right? So the solution to that is integrating, as you were saying, the math and language and science and all of that into the garden, right? But the problem that usually happens is that the teachers are like, okay, they start with their curriculum and they're like, okay, so this is my curriculum. Now, how can I teach this in a garden, right? That usually requires a garden, first of all. So if you look through the internet and search for lesson plans, gardening lesson plans, if a teacher does that, most of the time, what they find is a gardening lesson that assumes a garden exists. You know what I mean? So you have this garden with all these plants, let's say, and now let's go observe the plants. Let's go find the worms. Let's go do this and that. And then that connects to science in this way and connects to math in that way. That doesn't teach kids how to grow food, because you need a garden. You need to grow the food to learn how to do that. There is a lot of science behind growing the food. They're working with nature and, the biology that goes into it and all of that, the science behind water and water cycles, the science behind soil and soil building, the science behind seeds and germination and plant life cycle, the science behind animals and insects of the garden, beneficial animals and insects, pests, all of that. These are science lessons that can be taught in the garden, but not just in the garden, while the kids are growing the garden hands-on, right? And there's like math, for example. Your example was math, like you can, for example, the germination rate of your seeds. So if you're starting a bunch of seeds indoors, so measuring the seeds, number of the seeds, how many of them got germinated, and then data collection and management. So there's a lot that the teachers would find, the connections that they can find to all these subjects that you teach the students while you're teaching them how to grow food hands-on, that connects to the math and science. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember one of the first standout nature projects I ever did in school was building one of those self-watering plastic dome tops where I had the plant inside, and water would come up and then drizzle back down, and 40 years old, still thinking about it. So there's something magical to watching something not only come to life but thrive from your care and careful planning. And you don't get that with a math worksheet or writing a paper. You only really get that when your hands are responsible for nurturing and growing life. How do you feel, we're talking about growing plants, but that's in the theme of growing the next generation. How do you feel this prepares students for future education and the real world?
Well, man, you ask really good questions. Here's the thing. You don't have to want to become a farmer to learn how to grow food and to learn how to work with nature. Doctors who are connected to nature are better doctors. Engineers who know about nature and care about the environment are better engineers. Lawyers who care about all that stuff are better people, are better lawyers. Like so it connects to anything and everything because we are part of nature and learning that we are part of nature. And anything that we do in this world goes back to our relationship with nature, whether we're harming it or helping it, we're harming or helping ourselves. That is something that is super important, right? And you don't have to be a farmer to need to know that. So that's in my belief, it's the basics of anything that you do in your life is how are you and is your food connected to nature? Where is it coming from? So you know what I mean? It really doesn't matter. You don't have to be a farmer to need to know this. I think it's the basic knowledge that we have to teach our kids. We have to bring them back and connect them to nature so that they have this. And another thing is with all these problems in this world and environmental issues that are really doomsday type of narrative that our kids are hearing, I think giving them something they can do that connects to so many of these problems and solves so many of these problems that is accessible, a solution that's accessible to kids, connects them to, a pathway to mental health. You know what I mean? Because as teachers in a classroom, when you get questions about the climate change and all the environmental disasters that we are creating in this world as humans, so what is your answer to them? If your answer still is turn off the lights and shut the water and use less water and that's not going to cut it anymore. These kids are not stupid. They, you know what I mean? They're like, honestly, you're telling me that if I turn off the light, that's all I can do? I mean, look at all these disasters that are happening. It doesn't make sense to them. These answers no longer make sense. But if you tell them, hey, growing food is one of our humanly big issues and problems. We can't not eat, right? Everybody eats. But how are we growing our food? These are the things that we're doing that is harming the environment and, adding to the problem and this and this and that. But is there a solution to that? Yes, there's a solution to that. We can grow our food in this way, and we can build the soil, and we can be regenerative, and we can be working with nature and solve this problem and that problem and that problem and that problem, and local food and the problem of, our food traveling so far, which exactly connects to, our carbon footprint. There's so many different problems in this world that come right back to food and the way we're growing our food. And when that child learns that not only there is a solution, but that solution, hey, yes, look, I'm doing it. It's available to me. It's right here, right now. And I don't have to rely on any adult to make any decision about anything to solve this problem. I can solve it here and now. We can solve it as a classroom here and now. We can solve it as a school here and now. We can solve it as a community here and now. You see, that's why it matters. That's why it all matters, essentially, to teach these kids how to grow their own food, where it comes from, and that they have the power to change things, without, with a solution that's accessible to them.
At Thinkering Collective, we have a mantra that curiosity propels change. And, I think experiential learning is a driving force in creating curiosity. And there's nothing more experiential based learning than getting your hands inside of a garden and growing something from seed. How do you see,
Absolutely.
Have you heard from teachers that work in the garden has created engagement in other subject areas for students?
Yes. I actually had this podcast episode that I interviewed one of the teachers in my programs who's been in my programs for 3 years. And so the engagement part is a huge part of the solutions to the problems. But his students are grade 8, so they're right at the edge of, getting to high school and becoming, one of those absent students that we have. I don't know how it is over there, but over here, absenteeism in schools, especially in high school, is really, really high. And even in middle school and honestly, even in elementary school. So kids are just bored in the classroom. A lot of teachers are trying to find hands-on and exciting ways to bring them back to the classroom, to wake them up in the classroom, to help them actually pay attention so that they can teach something to them. Because and also that classroom community that the gardening builds is something that's crucial in a classroom setting. Because if the kids feel as part of a group, as part of a community, as part of a family, their guards are down. And if they feel that the teacher is on their side, and there's nothing essentially more ice-breaking than getting dirty. Like, honestly, get your hands in the soil, and they look at you at the beginning like, are you sure? Are you kidding me? I'm going to get dirty right here and right now in the classroom. And then they look at each other and they're like, yes, and they get dirty, and dirt falls on the ground, and they're like, oops, and they're like, no problem, this is gardening, we get dirty, there's water spills here and there, and that's fine, and we're going to not only we create something amazing together, but now we're going to clean up together, and we're going to be a community. The guards are down. The ice is, melted. And now these kids are ready to learn, So when they feel that the teacher is on their side, they're ready to learn. Now they're ready to hear anything that teacher has to say, because now they're excited and they feel safe. That safety in the classroom, they feel safe. And that brings up engagement in anything else too. It's not just getting engaged right there and then when you're doing the gardening activity. Now your classroom community is built and your kids are excited. They trust you. They trust each other. And this creates a safe environment for you to teach them and for them to learn, and for them to get excited to come back to the classroom the next day. And so this teacher was telling me that the kids are like, Monday morning, what are we going to do in the garden this week? Like they're excited about it, right? And this teacher has found so many connections to everything. And what he was telling me is, not only this is not something that goes on top of my plate, not only this is connecting to everything that I already do, but it gives me ideas in the spots that I don't know how to do it. There is a concept that I need to teach, but I have no idea how to teach it. So I go to your Oasis program and I'm like, here's how I can teach that, because this connects to this and this connects to that. So, and that brings in engagement way high, right? It's not just the hands-on part of it. It's, the community part of it and the fun part of it. And yeah.
The teacher training and bringing them on board and building that efficacy there is absolutely crucial to success. And I think one of the cool things your program does is it turns an educator into a peer for a little bit, where they're not just leading you down this educational journey. In the garden, they are an amateur as well, and they're learning also. And instead of it being an authority figure who's dictating how something's going to go, Mother Nature is that authority figure, and we're all at her whim. And it becomes interesting to see how going on that journey together as a classroom, rather than being led, I bet is a very empowering feeling for a student.
Yes, it is. It is. And it's really important. And this is a good fit for those teachers who agree with what you just said, that they don't have to be the authority figure in everything. And they can be the garden buddy with their students. And they can be learning it together, because they are learning it together. And they can be, vulnerable and say, hey, kids, this is my first time doing this too. So let's do it together, right? Yes, I have this program and this is guiding me through it. It's giving me everything step by step and everything, but I've never done this before. So let's give it a try. And another thing is, the growth mindset that this type of education instills in the students, because mistakes happen and you do something Mother Nature doesn't like. And the answer to that is not what you expected. The result is different than what you expected. What do you do now? The solution, the problem solving skills that this teaches you, and it also makes you humble, and it makes you think, again, and say, okay, so we got this feedback from Mother Nature. Where do you think the problem was? Let's go to now the science and, the math and all of that behind it and see what did we do wrong, and let's correct that mistake together. That's something that doesn't happen with math sheets and, it could, but it's very different, because you're the authority, and then the kids fill out the math sheet and they come to you and they're like, no, you did it wrong. You had to do it this way, that way. Now you're in it with the students, and you all learn together, and you learn that, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to, it's fine. It's part of life.
I'm going to put on my Nostradamus hat real quick. I think, I notice a pattern. We're having a global revival towards homesteading, being self-reliant, self-sufficient, producing our own food, and tapping back into being creators rather being consumers. That's just a pattern I notice globally with that movement towards kind of self-discovery of the old ways. How do you feel that plays into kids' growing city and the school systems?
Well, again, it's growing food. Growing food is working with nature. Working with nature is different. It's different than anything else that we've been taught to do. We've been taught to work against nature. We've been taught to, isolate ourselves from nature into our buildings and, connect to the screens and to the technology, which is all amazing, by the way. I have nothing, absolutely nothing against technology. Even in permaculture, there is this concept of using the right tools and the right technology, and you should definitely do that. We are talking over technology right now. Like, this message could not be spread if there was no technology. But when it becomes too much and it becomes at the wrong age, too much of it at the wrong age, that disconnection is what our kids have been learning throughout their lives, right? And that has to be coming in the classroom at the same time. And, so some of the old ways, we have to improve upon it. And some of the old ways, we have to just break and change. And one of the things that's missing that we have to bring back is this connection with nature and connection with good food. And that's what this program brings to your classroom.
What's that story that you love to tell where you just know that coming in and building that garden, it worked and it made a difference and you can see the impact? What's that success story you love to tell?
Well, actually, there's plenty of them, but one that always has stuck with me is from those old days at the beginning when I was running that after school program. The first time that I was doing this, I had this, because here's the thing, for the after school program, I, as the teacher or as the facilitator, had to go to different classrooms and pick those kids who were registered into my program from the classroom and bring it to my own classroom and then take them to the garden and bring them back. So there was this boy in one of these classrooms that had driven everybody nuts. Like, I remember that every time that I would go to pick him up for my class, his teachers were like, "Oh God, you're here. Just take him." Like, they couldn't stand him anymore, right? And he was the best student in my class. He was the first one, hands in the soil, the one with most interesting and exciting questions. Like, he was the best. It was like out there in the garden, it was like freedom for him. And not the type of freedom that was destructive, like he wouldn't go run in front of the cars or anything like that. No, he was there, hands in the soil, asking questions and all of that. I remember one time I saw his mom passing through the hallways, going to yet another meeting with the teachers, telling her how horrible his son is in the classroom. And I called her and I was like, "Okay, so by the way, your son is the best in my class." And she just stopped and looked at me and she was like, "What?" She hadn't heard that from any teacher ever before, right? And I'm like, "Yeah. He's the best student. He's the first one. He has so many interesting questions. He's so smart and excited and enthusiastic and all that. So give him something like that. Give him hands-on activities, right?" And I never forget, she started crying in the middle of the hallway and I started crying with her because I'm a mom too, right? So it gave her hope, Now, I don't know what happened to that child after that, but I hope that the mother, got this, right? And I don't know if she got it or not. I hope that she did change something about her son's education and got him into more hands-on activities and more engaging stuff. I don't know, but what I know is that I can never forget that moment when she started crying in the middle of the hallway. We need more of that. We need more of, we have to stop doing the same thing that doesn't work, the same boring, repetitive stuff that works for some kids, but definitely does not work for all. And we have to start bringing, ways to engage all of the different learners in our classrooms. And I know that the teachers are looking for that. And, being part of my programs and, growing a garden that's easy for you and it's the right way of doing this while it connects to your curriculum. It doesn't require a lot of your hard work and sacrifices, no sacrifices required. That's the type of thing that, it leaves you because it gives you all the step-by-step, plans and growing guides and everything, how to teach, like step-by-step, how to teach this concept and how to run the activities and everything so that you can do this in your classroom, only using your prep and class time and teach everything else at the same time too. So these are the types of things that we have to bring more into the education so that we don't leave kids behind, so that we don't make them feel like they don't belong just because we have a very strict four walls of the classroom type of education, which fits some kids and doesn't fit the rest of them, and we're leaving them behind.
For our education listeners out there who think, I've got a patch of green space that gets some good sunlight at my school, and they want to start a program and get growing, how do they get started? How do they reach out to you and get your mentorship and get involved in getting something started at their school?
I'm here for you. My website is kidsgrowingcity.com. Go check it out. I have a series of programs. It's called Oasis series of programs. There's Oasis Classroom for those educators who just want to start growing in the classroom. They don't want to bother or worry about an outdoor garden just yet. In many of the environments and growing zones, you have to grow indoors first anyway. So the Oasis Classroom is just that. All you need is a sunny window somewhere in your school. It doesn't even have to be your own classroom. You do the work and growing the seeds in your classroom while you connect it to your curriculum. And then those seedlings need to be, going in front of the sunny window with 4 to 5 hours of sunlight, direct sunlight that shines on top of the plants. You find that sunny window, you go for Oasis Classroom, and you will be growing over 20 varieties of food seedlings with a class of 20 students. That every one of them plants 2 seeds of every one of those food seedlings. You will end up with 800 food seedlings and an abundance of food seedlings that you can sell in an entrepreneurial market that your students put together to the parents and raise money for your school. You can donate them to the garden centers or community gardens around you. Your kids can take them home at the end of the school year. The ones that are short maturing, they actually harvest and you can put them in smoothies and, salads and things like that. Like sky is the limit with this, just the classroom. And we're not even going outside yet with this program, right? So that's one of the programs, Oasis Classroom. Then there is the Caja Oasis program, which we have been collaborating with this organization who builds sub-irrigated planters. These planters are amazing because the watering with these planters, summer maintenance watering is 80% less than a regular, conventional garden, which solves to some extent the problem of, summer maintenance, makes the parents' lives a lot easier and your success rate goes a lot higher. So you grow those seedlings indoors and you do still all that. You eat some, you send some home, you sell some, you donate some, and you also plant some in these, garden planters. That's called Caja Oasis Garden. And if you are really, and you would really like to grow one of those regenerative gardens that, is permaculture style, and you want to use your land for that, I have a program for that too. And that's called Oasis School. But again, this is a little bit more commitment, but everything happens during your class time, your prep and class time, like that is always there with all of my programs. And the deadline actually, because this is a one-time opening to my programs a year, because this is seasonal work. Like you can't do this in the middle of winter, and everybody understands that. So when the doors close to it, they close to it, but they're open right now. And I've been getting a lot of requests from people who are looking for funding to get a program like this. So they have seen it, they know what it is, they love it, they want to do it, but they're like, just still the funding isn't there. They've been requesting that I extend the deadline. So the deadline was to February 21st, but I'm extending it to February 28th. for those who want to do this, but they're still looking for the funding for it, I would love to help you do this right, because any other way, and it's unfortunate, you know what, Jim, it's actually very lonely to be the only one doing this. And with my philosophy, I'm not a competitive person. I would really love to see other people do this the right way too. But there isn't anything like this out there, unfortunately. So this is essentially your only shot to doing this right and in an educational way with ease. And ease is the biggest thing here. So to grow an abundance of food that's inspiring and exciting, not just to your students, but to the entire community, and do it with ease and do it without having to, rely on any parent volunteers. Well, a little bit during summer, but a little bit because we're going to be designing these gardens in a way that they're very low maintenance too. I'm here. Please come over and join us. Let's change the world one school garden at a time.
Absolutely. That's kidsgrowingcity.ca for the educators who want to get involved and start growing something beyond the next generation. And while you were talking, I had a little nugget pop into my head. It really does seem like the key to planting seeds inside of students is to plant seeds inside of the ground. And that's what's going to grow curiosity, which is going to propel change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's show them that let's empower them with the knowledge that they can grow at least some of their own food. And this, which is also fun, solves a lot of the problems in this world. So it's inspiring, it's empowering. So let's get them hands dirty.
Yeah, let's get the hands dirty. I was going to start off the episode today. I was going to go outside and show you my garden spot, but we just got 5 inches of snow. So that not happening. But
well, we've got a lot of snow here too. Lots. Like the snow banks are like as taller than me, honestly.
Too much. So Stay tuned, everybody. And next time I have Leila on, I'm going to take her out to my garden and get some personal advice.
Oh, I
Leila,
would love that.
Thanks for sharing your passion and insights with us. It's something that really means a lot to me as somebody who stumbled upon permaculture the same way and really changed my life. For the educators out there, you've got about a week to contact Leila, get involved, and get the school gardens going at your school. Let's plant the seeds in the students, the seeds in the ground. And until next time, let's nurture the curiosity, cultivate learning, and keep thinking.
Love the term thinkering, and we'll definitely use it in my classroom. The kids will love it.
This is where we can be that peer support network with each other. When the big picture clicks, it's beautiful when you get administrators and teachers together.
You can't be a leader of other people if you can't first lead yourself, right?
Helps the educator have a very clear and structured framework.
Becomes this real community hub. If you're a great educator, you're looking for the most powerful moment. Can we inspire kids to believe that the world needs who they were made to be?
I hope you guys continue to uphold that legacy and continue finding kids like you.